Well, hello, and welcome back to another tutorial video for Remnants of Naezith. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at some of the slightly more advanced techniques in this game, which are combinations of inputs, how they work, and how you can make use of them in-game. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to go over each of the basic inputs, all of the combinations you can do with them, and all of the orders that you can perform those combinations in. So to start things off, we are going to take a look at combinations with left and right inputs. Now the left and right inputs you're going to be using mostly to just hold one direction or to change one direction. They don't have an awful lot of strong interactions with the other inputs because you're going to be using them all the time, but it is important to know a couple of things. So first off, the left and right and jump inputs, basically you just jump in the direction that you are holding. There's not much to that. For the dash input, it's the exact same thing. You dash in the direction that you're moving, which means you can change directions and still dash in the opposite direction, as long as your speed is in the direction that you are traveling, but usually you'll just want to face the direction that you're dashing. One interesting thing about the dash and direction inputs is that dash allows you to change directions very quickly. So for example, I've got this slime-filled hole here, and you'll notice that I can change directions and it takes a little while for me to reach back and forth on the walls. If I do this with a dash input, I can very quickly switch back and forth between walls because the dash lets me change directions quickly. The movement speed from dash helps you to change directions very fast because it wants to boost you back up to that maximum speed as quickly as possible. The last one that we have is the grapple, which with the direction inputs, the only way that you actually gain speed while grappling is by holding the direction that you are traveling into your grapple. Something like this. You'll notice that as soon as I start traveling in a different direction from what I'm holding, so if I start traveling upwards, I start losing speed. Similarly, if you hold the opposite direction, you will change direction on your grapple, and if you don't have very much speed, you can actually do this to instantly stop yourself and just sort of hang from your grapple. So if your grapple location and your direction are opposite each other, you can actually just full-on stop while you're grappling. This is really only useful for the last level of the game and a couple of custom levels, but still useful to know. So those are the left and right inputs. Up next, we're going to take a look at how the dash input interacts with some other inputs. So up first, we have jump and dash. So jumping and dashing can either be performed in the order of jump and dash, or in the order of dash and jump. If you jump and then dash, you will jump and then dash. There's really not much of a combination there. It is useful in some circumstances to get your character to start falling sooner. In a lot of levels, we want to start falling as quickly as possible because gravity gives us free speed. So for something like this, if you have a ledge that you want to start falling over, and you would normally have to jump very high, or you would have to dash and then start falling after you pass the ledge, you can jump and then dash, and you'll notice that you start falling pretty quickly after you pass the ledge. Aside from that, jumping and then dashing doesn't really have too much of a use, whereas dashing and then jumping, which is also known as a dash jump, is very useful. A dash jump, where you dash before jumping, does this. You gain a ton of height from a dash jump. The dash compounds with your jump to drastically increase its power, and therefore drastically increase your height. You'll notice that I can double jump across this gap and just barely make it. I can dash jump a single time and make it with ease. A couple of cool things about the dash jump. First off, the jump portion can be performed at any point during the dash timer. If you recall from the first video, we said that dashes last for 0.5 seconds, so that means you can either dash jump immediately after you dash, or you can dash, wait a bit, and then jump. This is very useful for some levels where you have to get around obstacles and you want to dash and then jump later on, whereas if you wanted to get around the obstacle and you tried to dash jump immediately, it gets a little bit trickier, Usually still possible, but probably a lot harder. A couple of other things: you can double a dash jump by performing a double jump while you are dash jumping or while you are in the air. You can do this either with one dash by dash jumping quick enough during the duration, so you can dash jump and then double jump to gain a lot of height, or you can use two separate dashes like this. Both of them give you just as much height if performed correctly. The single dash method, you have to start jumping very early into the dash though. If you try to wait until the end of the dash, usually you won't have enough time to get the second jump out. Just like with regular jumps, dash jumps scale in height with how long you hold them, so you can perform very small dash jumps and very small dash double jumps, or you can perform very big dash jumps and very big dash double jumps. So that is the jump and dash input. The next input that we have, or combination, is the jump and grapple combination. So the two orders for this are jump and then grapple, or grapple and then jump. For the jump and then grapple combination, we've already seen previously that you can do grapple jumps by resetting your double jump with every grapple. But this can actually be done very quickly to rapidly gain a bunch of height. So for example, something like this. You can see I can gain a bunch of height by jumping, using the grapple to reset the double jump, and then jumping again. It's very difficult to gain a lot of speed like this, but you can gain height pretty quickly. As you get better with the game, you can start using it to gain height and speed at the same time, but that takes a lot of time and practice. In reality, sometimes it's just very useful to gain height quickly, especially in speedruns of the game. The second order, as I mentioned, was grapple and then jump, and this performs an action that we call a pull. The reason we call it a pull, well, you pull your character towards where your grapple lands. Pulls are extremely useful for a couple of different reasons, primarily because it instantaneously gives you speed in the direction that your grapple is located. This can be very useful in a lot of different circumstances if you want to very quickly gain height, very quickly move sideways, or in some instances very quickly move downwards as well. The important thing to remember is that the angle of your pull determines how much speed you get. If you have a pull that is completely vertical, you will gain a lot of Y speed and go very high, like so. If you have a pull that is horizontal, you will gain a lot of X speed and travel horizontally very quickly. And if you have a pull somewhere in the middle, you will gain a little bit of both. Usually it's optimal to perform pulls that are either fully vertical or fully horizontal, but there are some levels and some circumstances where combinations of both can be very useful for stuff. Alright, up next we have dash in combination with grapple. And this combination isn't super useful. One of the biggest mistakes I see new players make when they start learning how to grapple is they think, oh, dash makes me go fast, grapple makes me go fast, I should dash while I'm grappling. And that couldn't be further from the truth, which is kind of difficult in this game for the learning curve. A lot of the time you will see players who normally could just grapple a wall and have 750 move speed like so, and instead they will try to grapple and dash at the same time and get something like 522, which is much lower. And the reason for this is that the dash makes you move faster, which decreases the amount of time that you are grappling for, and therefore decreases your potential speed. What dashing during a grapple is useful for, however, is changing the direction of your momentum. This means that if you are traveling one direction, say for example downwards, and you want to be traveling another direction, for example upwards, you can use a dash as a bridge to carry your speed into the new direction. And so that would look something like this. You can see that as long as I dash at the correct time during my grapple, I carry a lot of speed. And you want to use your dash intelligently in the periods where your grapple is not giving you speed. So for example down here, whenever I am falling and I hit a grapple on a wall, the entire period where I am traveling towards my grapple, I am gaining more and more speed, At the point where I cross over the vertical line from my grapple and start moving here, I'm going to be losing speed because I'm moving in a different direction from my direction facing. I'm starting to move up. So once I cross over the vertical point, I want to use my dash to add on to the speed that I no longer have. And so I will dash at the bottom of my grapple to supplement my speed and move myself higher up. The same thing can be done going downwards to a slightly lesser degree. And in some cases that can be useful, mostly for custom levels. Alright, the last combination input that we have is dash and jump and grapple at the same time. And the only key thing to make this work is that you're either going to have to press all of these buttons at the exact same time, or you'll want to have your grapple pressed first before you perform the dash and jump inputs. And when you do these three inputs together, it performs something we call a dash pull that looks like this. You'll notice that a dash pull is basically just a pull while a dash is happening. It performs the exact same thing that a pull does, which is giving you speed in the direction of your grapple, but it does it a lot more quickly. It also increases the range of your pull. You'll notice that a regular pull cannot hit this block up here, whereas a dash pull, if performed correctly, can. Sometimes I still miss this, it's a little bit hard to get the timing right. It slightly increases the range of your pull. As I mentioned, they have the same properties as a regular pull, so you can perform a dash pull that is completely vertical to gain a lot of Y speed, and this is where the dash pull really shines. You can see a normal pull brings me here, a dash pull brings me all the way up here. Horizontally, you would think that a dash pull would give you a lot more speed than a regular pull, but that's actually not the case. A dash pull performs the action more quickly because of the dash, but it doesn't actually give you any bonus speed in comparison with vertical. So to showcase this, if I do a horizontal pull, you can see my speed's about 694. You can get up to 696 or 697 sometimes. If I do it with a dash, 692, around the same thing, sort of hovering around 700 if done perfectly. The benefit of using the dash pull is that you can perform this much more quickly with a dash, whereas with a regular pull you usually have to wait a while to get all the way up there. Now, a couple of things to note about making dash pulls work. The dash pull will only be a dash pull if you either pass the point where your grapple is touching the surface or release your grapple while the dash is active. If you dash too soon and don't make it up to your grapple point, you will not get a dash pull. If you dash at the right time and make it past the grapple point, you will get a dash pull. And at the same time, you can also release your grapple to get a dash pull. It doesn't go nearly as high, but in some cases it can be useful to perform actions like this, especially in the later levels of the game. So that is it for the combination mechanics. Hopefully this has been helpful. A lot of these mechanics are things that you have to sort of fiddle around with on your own, get a feel for them, sort of fail a lot with using them properly to learn how they do work properly. But once you get the hang of them, a lot of these inputs, especially pulls and dash pulls, can be exceptionally fun to perform. Hopefully this has been helpful, and in the next video we'll be taking a look at a lot of the more advanced mechanics of this game, how we utilize these combination mechanics in actual levels, and how to make yourself go fast in this game. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.